Hello, everyone. My name is David Feinstein, and I'm the literacy educator at the Eric Carle Museum of Picture Book Art. And joining me today from her art studio in Lexington, Massachusetts is Ioana Hobai, the illustrator of Before You Sleep, A Bedtime Book of Gratitude, and the author and illustrator of Lena's Slippers and A Whale of a Mistake, which was just recently nominated for a New England Book Award. Congratulations, Ioana, and thank you so much for taking the time to chat.
Thank you for having me. It's such an honor to join the Carle Museum of Picture Book Art. It's amazing as a picture book creator, so thank you.
Well, all of us at the Carle, we love talking to authors and illustrators such as yourself to learn more about your process for writing stories and creating art, and also to learn more about what inspires you. So we have a few questions for you, and then afterwards, we're going to share an art project that you've created for us at your studio.
Okay. Thank you.
So our first question is, where do you get your ideas for your books?
Some people say that ideas are all around us, and it's just a matter of us kind of catching the right ones. I tend to doodle a lot. Like I draw constantly, and I've done that ever since I was very little. And I think most of my ideas come from something that I've drawn. And usually it's when I play with drawing, not when I intend to do that. So maybe it's a character and I really love it. And I think, ooh, this could be a story. In the case of Lena's Slippers, for example, I had a portfolio piece based on a childhood memory. And it reminded me of this fairly awful teacher that I had in elementary school. And I thought, that could be a story and I could write it. So again, it came from a drawing. A Whale of a Mistake was a little bit different because I wrote down the story first, and it was more like a meditation on the nature of mistakes. And then I thought, maybe this could become a picture book. One evening when I drew a picture of a whale floating onto the open sea, and it just opened that possibility that maybe could be made into a picture book. And so I think, you see things around you, you see objects. I love to travel, so there's usually something, a color on a piece in a museum, anything that sort of strikes you, and it can inspire you. So I think inspiration is really everywhere. The work is to get it down on paper and make it into a story. So I think that's the hardest part.
So I'm curious, when you're illustrating a book like A Whale of a Mistake, do you have a favorite tool or material that you like to work with?
I think I tend to use watercolor and ink. I make the drawings first in pencil, and then I use them as a base. So first of all, I work traditionally. I don't use digital media. That means a tablet or an iPad or a more elaborate Cintiq tablet. I have one borrowed from a friend, but I'm too slow on it. So I'm using pencil, and then I color the image with watercolor. And again, that can happen once, twice, 3 times until the piece is actually what I want it to be and the colors are just right. And I cannot ever say what makes it right or wrong. It's like, how do you feel about it? And it's also looking at it and thinking, can it be more? Am I just doing the minimum, or can I push myself? And sometimes you find that you can actually push yourself and get better. It's only the third or the fourth are actually better. Sometimes it's the second, and you go back to it and it's like, I was right. So, but it's a process. So it's mainly watercolor and ink. Before You Sleep was interesting because I used colored pencil layered over watercolor to enhance some of the effects. But it's so that's a little bit more unusual. But I tend to kind of go that direction more or less.
This next question, I love this question, and it actually comes from Rebecca, who I work with at the museum. She wanted to know, if you made any mistakes or encountered any surprises when you were making a whale of a mistake, and if so, how did you deal with that? What did you do?
This was actually not, it really happened. So I started working on the finals, which means the final art for the project. And I went maybe 3/4 in the book. No, 2/3 of the book, something. I was kind of before the, and I was using this palette of grays and blues, which I thought was sort of moody and matched the text. And I got to the point where I laid them on the floor and I thought, I don't like this. I think it's too, it's uninteresting, it's flat, it's too gloomy. And I thought of my audience, which would be, some of it would be young kids. And I thought, why would anybody like this? It's not good enough. And my problem was I was on a deadline. And I was thinking, well, do I go forward, try and fix this, or do I start all over? And you have to realize that each of those pieces of drawing was not a one-off. It was the result of 2 or 3 or 4 trials for each piece. And then I thought, you only have one shot at this, of getting it right. You know, once the book gets published, you can't change anything, or it's off to the printer. So I thought, you know, hard as it may be, it was a big mistake to use this. And also, why not go and be a little bit more wild? Because again, the text is a little bit quiet and paced, and make the pictures, the emotional journey happens in the picture. So if you throw a red wine color sky and the blue sea, and make it a little bit more wild, because the whale is not real anyway. So why should we stick to reality? So I started again, and I was happy I did in the end. But in looking back, I thought it was kind of funny to write a book about a mistake and actually make a really big mistake while illustrating it. So yeah.
Right, you really lived the plot of that book as you were making it.
Seriously, I'm living the plot of that book ever since I published. Every day, you know, there's no day that doesn't pass that I'm thinking of some mistake that I must have done and kind of getting myself wound up in it. And yeah, so it happens still.
Me too. I'm sure a lot of our viewers can relate to that as well. So in a minute, we'll actually share we'll share a wonderful art project that you created for us in your art studio where you are right now. We were talking before, it's your art studio and it's your kitchen. So I'm wondering if there is a special object or an object of any kind that inspires you to create when you're in that space.
There are lots of things that I pick. And sometimes, you know, when I walk on the beach, I pick these little pieces of shells that you can see. Oops, like this, you know. You just find them on any beach. But it's kind of fun to play with them and sort of draw little faces on them, you know. And you get like little characters and they're talking. So that's one thing that you can do, that I do sometimes to play. Or we pick up pebbles, and this is a pebble that my daughter drew on again. But one of my favorite things of late, I bought it last year. I was on a trip to Rome. I bought a key. So
that's a big key.
It's a big key. It's from an old shop, and it's heavy, and it has this sort of little piece of metal on it, and it makes a nice noise. And I bought it almost as a joke. It was in this old store, and I thought, I want to have an invisible house in Rome, and I need a key. And I bought this key, and the shop owner, who was an old gentleman, he said to me, yes, it's true, you need a key to open things. And I was like, you know, thank you for playing along. I had told him that I write picture books, so he didn't think me completely off. But after coming home, like earlier this year, I started tracing off this key and then making all sorts of images. And I keep going back to it for whatever reason and tracing it and then thinking, what could it be? And I was going to show you maybe as a quick example. You don't need to have a key. You can take something as easy as you can have in your kitchen, a strainer, let's say. So you put it like this, you take a marker, And, you know, you go around it, right? It's not that hard. So let's see what happens. I'm going to cheat then. And what could this be? And I'm thinking, it could be a lady. And she has, I don't know, her, you know. And there it is. It's not a strainer anymore, you know. And, you
Totally
know, if we have
transformed.
time, I don't know if we have time, but there's the, you know, the cake knife. And, you know, I'm going to cheat again. I'm going to make. So the cake knife is like, what are you doing? There you go. I brought you a piece of cake. So, you know, it's things like this. And then, of course, if you want to, you can write a story with the strainer and the cake knife. So it's as easy as that. So,
It's as easy as cake.
yeah, really. So it's just a matter of, and I'm sure you have plenty of things in your kitchen and your house that you can do this kind of exercise and just trace over and enjoy, just make stories with them, because that's the fun part. Like, and you never know what you may stumble upon. And for kids, it's a lot of fun.
So it seems like you can find inspiration just from those examples from pretty much anything. I'm wondering if there are ever moments when you are not feeling inspired at all. What do you do? Is there something that you do to kind of give yourself a break, or just step away from thinking about telling a story or creating art?
I usually don't like to force myself into thinking a story. If a story doesn't work for me, whether being written or drawn, I step away from it. Sometimes I write a story, it happens. And because I'm the illustrator as well, I feel like kicking myself. It's like, why are you making your life so hard? You know, because usually as an author, you give it to the illustrator and they need to deal with that. But if you're both, it's like, why did I even think of writing this? How am I ever going to illustrate it? So it can be quite hard. So that's when I either go for a walk, go for a run. I love to go to Marblehead, which is close to Salem, and just sit there on the beach and clear my mind. Or if it's a project that's like with a deadline or whatever, I doodle on the side something unrelated to the project. And it can be something as simple as almost in the spirit of tracing over the spoons, but let's say you wet a piece of paper and you just drop some paint on it. And it can form some dots or bubbles. I want to show you something here. Like, this means nothing, you know, this is nothing. It's just ways to clear my mind when I'm drawing. And sometimes when you're drawing things, you know, it can happen that among all those things, maybe you see a dog. And the dog is going to a birthday party. And then you go to a story that has nothing to do with the project that you work on. But it's just, for me, painting and drawing has almost like a meditative quality. Like, I find my peace in drawing without thinking. And sometimes good things can come out of that.
I'm curious if you have a favorite picture book that it could be a book that you loved as a child, or one that you've read more recently.
This is such a tough question, okay? Because, well, first of all, I don't have, I came to this country as an adult, so I did not bring, and I lived in England for 3 years before that, so I did not bring any picture books. I have some German classic fairy tales in Romanian, but that's not a picture book that I used to love as a kid. But one of the books that I really loved when my kids were little, and one that inspired me to actually look deeper into picture books. Even though I was illustrating at the time, I was illustrating Hans Christian Andersen stories just for myself. um, was this book by Peter Sis,
Yes.
Madlenka's Dog. I absolutely
Love
love
this.
this book. It's just wonderful because it's the story and it's also the dog that's not there. And it's not just the text and the illustrations that inspire you to dream, but it involves the reader in such a way that may bring memories of their own dogs. And you can always enhance the story when you read it to kids in a completely different way. Like I never read this book the same way to my kids every night when we were opening it, because you always find something different in it, and you can just go on, on a memory rabbit hole type thing and just talk about other things. And I think it's wonderful. It's just, I mean, he's amazing, Peter Sis, and it's just he's one of my favorite illustrators, and somebody maybe also because he comes from the Czech Republic. So his book The Wall speaks to me in a different way, having grown up in Romania. So and then I was thinking I have another one that I can show you, but just quickly. This is called My Little Small, and it's by Ulf Stark, and pictures are by Linda Bondenstam, and was published by Enchanted Lion. And this is a lovely, lovely book about this little character who's lonely and gray, and he doesn't know much of the world. And one day he finds a spark, and he becomes friends with the spark, and the spark teaches him to see the world in a different way. And it's just very moving and absolutely lovely. It's a lovely, lovely story. So it's like seeing the world through other people's eyes and connecting, and these kind of themes just speak to me. So
I'm a big fan, and we at the Carl are big fans of Peter Cease as well. But it's so great to find new books. So now that's the next book I'm going to go look for.
absolutely, absolutely, we can talk offline, and I can give you all this.
I would love that. Well, Ioana, thank you so much for taking the time to talk about your work and what inspires you. For our viewers, if you'd like to purchase Ioana's most recent book, A Whale of a Mistake, please visit the Carle Bookshop at shop.carlmuseum.org. And you'll receive, we have some bookmarks and an autographed book plate. And if you, the first 7 folks to order, we also have these really beautiful handmade whale paintings, Ioana, that you made for us. But in the meantime, Ioana, you've created a really wonderful art project for us, making puppets out of everyday materials. And I think our viewers are really going to enjoy watching this short video, kind of to find their own creative inspiration at home. So let's take a look.
Hello, friends of the Carle Museum of Picture Book Art. Thank you for joining me today in my studio. We're going to try and make some puppets out of toilet paper rolls. And let's get to work and have fun. Thank you. So let's make a puppet out of very simple materials. I have here a piece of paper towel, a small paper napkin, a paper roll, and some tape, and also some markers that we may need. You can use colorful napkins. I didn't have any, but this will actually help us, because when you have very few resources, it pushes you to be a little bit more creative. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the paper towel, fold it, scrunch it a little bit like this, and stick it in the paper towel, and it's very easy. Then I take the paper napkin, wrap it around, scrunch it a little bit there, use a bit of tape to hold it in place. There you go. This could be a little coat. And then we can take a marker and Draw some eyes and a nose and a mouth. And look, he's smiling. And if you want to be a little bit more, make it a little bit more colorful, you know, you can give him some pink or orange cheeks, whatever color you want. We can use a marker, a thicker one maybe, if you have a Sharpie, to color in the hair. Look. And this is where, you know, not having colorful napkins comes into play, because you can color your puppet any way you want, you know. And you can also give them some dots on the coat. See? Or even with a bit of red. You can draw whatever you want on them. Make them colorful and jolly. There, then you put your fingers here, and then see, it moves. And you can make a puppet theater. And let's make another one. Very simple one, I think. Have another roll here, and I thought just before I started filming this, I've never used paper foil, tin foil before. So aluminum foil actually. And if you wrap it around your tube, you almost don't need the tape, but it should be a little bit longer than the tube itself. And then I can actually break it in there, and I'm going to, I was thinking of making a robot, but I'm going to try and make an alien and see if that works. If I take another piece of tape and fold it, not that we know what aliens look like, right? But there. This is an attempt, okay? So you can make yours however you like. There you go. Does it look very much like an alien? Or maybe a robot? Well, it can be whatever you want it to be. You can take another piece of foil, fold it some more so that it's fairly stiff, and then if you wrap it around, there you go, your friend has arms. I'm going to stick them right there. Another piece of tape here. Oh, one arm is longer. Is it? Oh, maybe. Look, it's a very friendly one. Let's give him some eyes. I think I'm going to give him red eyes. Maybe. I think it just looks better on the... I don't have... this marker is very big, and give him a nose. Does he have a nose? We don't know, but you know what? We can imagine. And you can draw buttons, buttons, like a little control panel here on his tummy. I don't know. Sort of say, I am friendly. And there he is. So here you have, see, you have another one, and you can play with it. You can draw backgrounds for them. So these are two examples of what you can do very quickly with things you have around the house. In quarantine, I made a couple more. Some are a little bit more elaborate, but the principle is the same. Basically using tissue paper. If you have tissue paper around the house, you can just wrap it around the same way. I made a mouse. You
sort of stick round ears to him, but the same thing is like, you know, it's tissue paper stuck in there, and then you make a nose and you draw on him. Or if you want to be a little bit more elaborate, you can even make a little elephant. This is by making a bigger ball and sticking it in the tube and then wrapping it around with tissue paper, and you create a little elephant. This is my latest book. It's called A Whale of a Mistake, but this is not why I'm showing it to you, because on the cover you can see there's a big whale, and I would have loved to be able to do an animation based on this book, but I don't know how. So the closest I could come up with was make a whale out of a toilet paper roll, and it's the same principle as the elephant you've seen earlier. The tube is here, there's a big ball of aluminum foil here, and it's all wrapped in kitchen towels and then a paper napkin tied with tape. And the point is that if you have a book that you love or a character, you can challenge yourself to recreate that scene or character from a book. And if I'm removing the dust jacket from my book, you can see that there's a starry night there. So my whale is kind of floating and swimming under the starry night. You can play with that, make a little theater for you and your family. So I hope this has inspired you to go and collect things that you have around the house and try and make something beautiful.
What a beautiful and dreamlike video.
I hope that people will be inspired to go and grab all their toilet paper rolls they find around the house and create something amazing. And it'd be wonderful if you could post them on social media and maybe tag the Carle. That'd be really cool. So it'd be kind of cool to see them. So
that's a great idea. I know I can't wait to create some puppets with my own son Isidore while we're at home. And if you would like to share your own creations, please do tag the museum. You can tag @Carle Museum on social media, and we would love to see what you make. So thank you again, Ioana, for taking the time to talk and to inspire us to create on our own. And thank you everyone for joining us. Bye.
thank you so much for having me. Bye.